So, hello and welcome back. As you can see, the world has turned white again. It's snowing. I just got back in from shoveling said snow, and it doesn't look like it's stopping. I don't think we were supposed to get snow today. I don't know. As my oldest son always says, just assume that there is a chance of snow pretty much every day throughout December and roll with it from there. We are back with Around the World in 80 Days. We are almost done with it. In fact, tomorrow I will be announcing our three choices and opening up voting for the book that we start next. I'm kind of excited about all three of them, and I hope that you are too. I've got a good feeling about them, although who knows, I had a good feeling about this one too. And it's not a bad book. It's been a ride. And to that end, and because I have more things yet to do today, we are going to read two chapters of Around the World in 80 Days by Mr. Jules Verne, beginning with chapter 33, which is titled, In Which Phileas Fogg Shows Himself Equal to the Occasion. That must mean he's going to find a boat ride and make it to England. But I guess we'll find out, won't we? I should have brushed my hair better before I came back in. Oh well. An hour after, the Henrietta passed the lighthouse which marks the entrance of the Hudson, turned the point of Sandy Hook, and put out to sea. During the day, she skirted Long Island, passed Fire Island, and directed her course rapidly eastward. At noon the next day, a man mounted the bridge to ascertain the vessel's position. It might be thought that this was Captain Speedy. Not the least in the world. It was Phileas Fogg, Esquire. As for Captain Speedy, he was shut up in his cabin under lock and key and was uttering loud cries which signified an anger at once pardonable, but still rather excessive. What had happened was very simple. Phileas Fogg wished to go to Liverpool, but the captain would not carry him there. Then Phileas Fogg had taken passage for Bordeaux, and during the 30 hours he had been on board, had so shrewdly managed with his bank notes that the sailors and stokers, who were only an occasional crew and were not on the best terms with the captain, went over to him in a body. This is why Phileas Fogg was in command instead of Captain Speedy, why the captain was a prisoner in his cabin, and why, in short, the Henrietta was directing her course to Liverpool. It was very clear to see Mr. Fogg managing the craft that he had once upon a time been a sailor. How the adventure ended will be seen anon. Odo was anxious, though she said nothing. As for Passepartout, he thought Mr. Fogg's maneuver was simply glorious. The captain had said between 11 and 12 knots, and the Henrietta had confirmed this prediction. If, then, for there were ifs, the sea did not become too boisterous, if the wind did not veer round to the east, if no accident happened to the boat or its machinery, the Henrietta might cross the 3,000 miles from New York to Liverpool in the 9 days between the 12th and 21st of December. It is true that once arrived, the affair on board the Henrietta, added to that of the Bank of England, might create more difficulties for Mr. Fogg than he imagined or could possibly desire. Well, he would just have to deal with that when he got there. During the first days, they went along smoothly enough. The sea was not very unpropitious. The wind seemed stationary in the northeast. The sails were hoisted, and the Henrietta plowed across the waves like a real transatlantic steamer. Passepartout was quite delighted. His master's last exploit, the consequences of which he ignored, quite enchanted him. Never had the crew seen such a jolly and dexterous a fellow. He formed friendships with the sailors and amazed them with his acrobatic feats. He thought they managed the vessel like gentlemen, and that the stokers fired up like heroes. His loquacious good humor infected everyone. He had forgotten the past, its vexations, its delays. He thought only of the end so nearly accomplished, and sometimes he boiled over with impatience, as if heated in the furnaces of the Henrietta. Often, also, the worthy fellow revolved around Fix, looking at him with a keen, distrustful eye, but did not speak to him, for their old friendship just no longer existed. Fix, it must be confessed, understood nothing of what was going on. The conquest of the Henrietta, the bribery of the crew, Fogg managing the boat like a skilled seaman, all amazed and confused him. He did not know what to think at all. For after all, a man who began by stealing £55,000 might end by stealing a boat, and Fix was not unnaturally inclined to conclude that the Henrietta under Fogg's command was probably not going to Liverpool at all, but to some part of the world where the robber, now turned pirate, would quietly put himself in safety. The conjecture was at least a plausible one, and the detective began to seriously regret that he had begun this entire affair. As for Captain Speedy, he continued to howl and growl in his cabin, and Passepartout, whose duty it was to carry him his meals, courageous as he was, took all of the greatest precautions. Mr. Fogg did not even seem to know that there was another captain on board. On the 13th, they passed the edge of the banks of Newfoundland, a dangerous locality during the winter, especially. There are frequent fogs, there are heavy gales of wind. Ever since the night before, the barometer, which was suddenly falling, had indicated a approaching change in the atmosphere, and during the night the temperature varied, the cold became sharper, and the wind veered to the southeast. This was a misfortune. Mr. Fogg, in order not to deviate from his course, furled his sails and increased the force of the steam, but the vessel's speed slackened owing to the state of the sea, the long waves of which broke up against the stern. She pitched violently, and this slowed her progress. The breeze, little by little, swelled into a tempest, and it was to be feared that the Henrietta might not be able to maintain herself upright upon the waves. Passepartout's face darkened with the skies, and for 2 days the poor fellow experienced a constant fright. But Phileas Fogg was a bold mariner, and he knew how to maintain headway against the sea, and he kept on his course without ever decreasing his steam. The Henrietta, when she could not rise upon the waves, crossed them, swamping her deck, but still managing safely. Sometimes the screw rose up out of the water, beating its protruding end when a mountain of water raised the stern above the waves, but the craft always stayed straight ahead. The wind, however, did not grow as boisterous as might have been feared. It was not one of those tempests which burst and rushed with the speed of 90 miles an hour. It continued fresh, but unhappily it remained obstinately in the southeast, rendering their sails quite useless. The 16th day of December was the 75th day since Phileas Fogg had departed London, and the Henrietta had not yet been seriously delayed. Half of the voyage was almost accomplished, and the worst localities had been passed. In summer, their success would have been well nigh certain, but in winter they were at the mercy of the bad season. Passepartout said nothing, but he cherished hope in secret, and comforted himself with the reflection that if the wind failed them, they might still count on steam. On this day, the engineer came up on deck, went up to Mr. Fogg, and began speaking earnestly with him. Without knowing why, presentiment perhaps, Passepartout became vaguely uneasy. He would have given one of his ears to hear with the other what the engineer was saying. Finally, he managed to catch a few words, and was sure that he heard his master say, "You're certain of what you tell me?" "Certain, sir." said the engineer. "You must remember that since we started, we've kept up hot fires in all our furnaces, and though we had coal enough to go on short steam from New York to Bordeaux, we don't have enough to go with all steam from New York to Liverpool." "I will think about this," said Mr. Fogg. And Passepartout understood it all. He was seized with mortal anxiety. The coal was giving out. "Ah, if my master can get over that," he muttered, "he will be a famous man." He couldn't help going and telling Fix what he had overheard. "And you believe we're really going to Liverpool?" said Fix. "Ah, très bien, of course." "You're an ass," said the detective. He shrugged his shoulders and turned and walked away. Passepartout was upon the point of vigorously resenting the epitaph, the reason of which he could not for the life of him understand, but he reflected that the unfortunate Mr. Fix was probably just disappointed and humiliated. His self-esteem, after having been so awkwardly following a false scent around the world, was probably hurt, so he refrained. So what would Phileas Fogg do? It was difficult to imagine. Nevertheless, he seemed to have decided upon a course, for that evening he sent for the engineer and said to him, "Feed all the fires till the coal is gone." A few minutes later, the funnel of the Henrietta vomited forth torrents of smoke, and the vessel continued to proceed with all steam on. But on the 18th, the engineer, as predicted, announced that the coal would give out during the course of the next day. "Don't let the fires go out," said Mr. Fogg. "Keep it up till the last. Let the valves be filled." Towards noon, Phileas, having ascertained their position, called Passepartout and ordered him to go for Captain Speedy. It was as if the honest fellow had been commanded to unchain a tiger. He went to the poop, saying to himself, "He will be like a madman." In a few moments, with cries and oaths, a bomb appeared up on the poop deck. That bomb was Captain Speedy. It was clear he was on the point of bursting. "Where are we?" was the first words his anger permitted. Had the poor man been on the point of stroke, he would never have recovered from his paroxysm of wrath. "Where are we?" he said with a purple face. 770 miles from Liverpool," said Mr. Fogg calmly. "You pirate," said Captain Speedy. "I have sent for you, sir." "Picaroon!" "Sir," said Mr. Fogg, "to ask you to sell me your vessel." "No." "But I'm going to be obliged to burn her." "Burn my boat?" "Yes, at least the upper decks. The coal is given out." "Burn my vessel?" cried Captain Speedy, who could scarcely say the words. "A vessel worth $50,000? "Here is 60,000, said Phileas Fogg, handing the captain a roll of bank bills. This had a prodigious effect on Andrew Speedy. An American can scarcely remain unmoved at the sight of $60,000. The captain forgot his anger, his imprisonment, and all of his grudges upon his passenger. The Henrietta was already 20 years old, and this was a great bargain. The bomb would not go off after all. Mr. Fogg had removed the match. "And I shall still have the iron hull," said the captain in a softer voice. "Yes, you will retain the iron hull and the engine. Is this agreed?" "Agreed." And Andrew Speedy, seizing the banknotes, counted them and put them in his pocket. During this speech, Passepartout was as pale as a sheet, and Fix seemed on the point of having an apoplectic fit. Nearly 20,000 pounds had been expended, and Fogg left the hull and the engine to the captain. That is almost the whole value of the craft. It is true, however, that 55,000 pounds had been stolen from the bank. When Andrew Speedy pocketed the money, Mr. Fogg said, Don't let this astonish you. You must know that I will lose £20,000 unless I arrive in London by a quarter before 9 on the evening of the 21st of December. I missed the steamer at New York, and since you refused to take me to Liverpool—" "Hm! Well, I did it well," said Speedy, "for I've gained at least $40,000 by it." Then he added more calmly, "You know one thing, Captain." Fogg. "Captain Fogg, you got something of the Yankee in ya." And, having paid his passenger what he considered to be a high compliment, he was about to go away when Mr. Fogg said, "This vessel now belongs to me." "Certainly. From the keel to the trunk of the mast. Well, all the wood, that is." "Fine. Have the interior seats, bunks, and frames pulled down and burn them." It was necessary to have dry wood to keep the steam up to the adequate pressure, and on that day, the poop, the cabin, the bunks, and the spare deck were all sacrificed. The next day, the 19th, the mast, raft, and spars were burned. The crew worked lustily, keeping up the fires. Passepartout hewed, cut, and sawed with all of his might. There was a perfect rage on board for demolition. The railings, the fittings, the greater part of the deck, and the topsides disappeared on the 20th, and the Henrietta was now only a flat hulk. But on this day they sighted the Irish coast and the Fastnet Light. By 10 in the evening they were passing Queenstown. Phileas Fogg had only 24 more hours in which to get to London. That length of time was necessary just to reach Liverpool with all the steam still on, and the steam was about to give out totally. "Sir," said Captain Speedy, who was now deeply interested in Mr. Fogg's project, "I really commiserate with you. Everything's going against you. We're only opposite of Queenstown." Said Mr. Fogg. "Is that a place where we can see the lights? Queenstown?" "Yeah." "Can we enter the harbor?" "Not in only under 3 hours. We can only do it at high tide." "Stay," said Mr. Fogg calmly, without betraying on his features that by supreme inspiration he was about to attempt yet again to conquer ill fortune. "Queenstown is the Irish port at which the transatlantic steamers stop to put off the mail. The mail is carried to Dublin by express trains, and it's always held in readiness to start. From Dublin, they are sent on to Liverpool by the fastest of boats, and thus they gain 12 hours on the Atlantic steamers." Phileas Fogg counted on gaining 12 hours the same way. Instead of arriving at Liverpool the next evening by the Henrietta, he could be there by noon, and would therefore have time to reach London before a quarter of 9 that evening. The Henrietta entered the Queenstown harbor at 1 in the afternoon, or 1 in the morning, it then being high tide, and Phileas Fogg, after being grasped heartily by the hand by Captain Speedy, left that gentleman on the leveled hulk of his boat, which was still worth half of what he had sold it for, at least. The party went on shore at once. Fix was greatly tempted to arrest Mr. Fogg on the spot, but didn't. Why? What struggle was going on in the man? Had he changed his mind? Did he understand that he had made a grave mistake? He did not, however, abandon Mr. Fogg. They all got upon the train, which was just ready to start at 1:30 at dawn of the day. They were in Dublin, and they had lost no time in embarking on a steamer which, disdaining to rise upon the waves, invariably just plowed through them. Phileas Fogg at last disembarked on the Liverpool quay at 20 minutes before 12 on December 21st. He was only 6 hours away from London. But right at this moment, Fix came up, put his hand upon Mr. Fogg's shoulder, and showing him the warrant, said, "You're really Phileas Fogg?" "I am." "Well, then, I arrest you in the Queen's name." And that cliffhanger, which we thankfully don't have long to worry about, just long enough for me to get a drink, is where we're going to leave it. They left all the good action till the very end of this book, and I'm enjoying it much more now. I'll be right back. All right, let's see how Phileas gets himself out of this one. We're almost done. We are going to be back into Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne with chapter 34, in which Phileas Fogg at last reaches London. Phileas Fogg was in prison. He had been shut up in the custom house, and he was to be transferred to London the next day. Passepartout, when he saw his master arrested, would have fallen upon Fix had he not been held back by some policemen. Aouda was thunderstruck at the suddenness of an event which she did not understand. Passepartout explained to her how it was that the honest and courageous Mr. Fogg was arrested as a robber. The young woman's heart revolted against such a heinous charge, and when she saw that she could attempt to or do nothing to save her protector, she wept. As for Mr. Fix, he had arrested Mr. Fogg because it was his duty, whether Fogg was guilty or not. The thought then struck Passepartout that he was the cause of this new misfortune. Had he not concealed Fix's errand from his master? When Fix revealed his true character and purpose, why had he not told Mr. Fogg? If Fogg had been warned, he would no doubt have given Fix proof of his innocence and satisfied him of his mistake. At least then Fix would not have continued his journey at the expense and on the heels of his master, only to arrest him the minute he set foot on English soil. Passepartout wept until he couldn't see, and he felt like doing even worse. Aouda and he had remained, despite the cold, under the portico of the customs house. Neither wished to leave the place. They were both anxious to see Mr. Fogg again. That gentleman was really ruined, and right upon the moment when he was about to attain his ends. This arrest was fatal. Having arrived at Liverpool at 20 minutes before 12 on the 21st of December, he had until 9:15 that evening to reach the Reform Club. That is, he had 9¼ hours, and the journey from Liverpool to London would take 6. If anyone at this moment had entered the custom house, he would have found Mr. Fogg seated, motionless, calm, and without any apparent anger upon a wooden bench. He was not, it is true, resigned, but this last blow failed to force him into any outward betrayal of any emotions at all. Was he being devoured by one of those secret rages, all the more terrible because they're contained, and which only burst forth with irresistible force at the very last moment? No one could tell. There he sat, calmly waiting for what? Did he still cherish hope? Did he still believe now that the door of his prison was closed upon him, that he could succeed? However that may have been, Mr. Fogg carefully put his watch upon the table and observed its advancing hands. Not one word escaped his lips, but his look was singularly set and stern. The situation, in any event, was a terrible one, and might be thus stated. If Phileas Fogg were an honest man, he was ruined. If he was a knave, he had been caught. Did escape occur to him? Did he examine to see if there were any practical outlet from his prison? Did he think of escaping? Possibly. For once he walked slowly around the room, but the door was locked and the window was heavily barred with iron rods. He sat down again and drew his journal from his pocket. On the line where these words were written, December 21st, Saturday, Liverpool, he added 80th day, 11:40 a.m., and then he waited. The custom house clock struck 1. Mr. Fogg observed that his watch was now 2 hours too fast. 2 hours? Admitting that he was at this moment taking an express train, he could reach London and the Reform Club by 9:15. His forehead slightly wrinkled. At 30 minutes past 2, he heard a singular noise outside, then a quick opening of the doors. Passepartout's voice was audible, and immediately after that, the voice of Fix. Phileas Fogg's eyes brightened for an instant. The door swung open, and he saw Passepartout, Aouda, and Mr. Fix, who hurried towards him. Fix was out of breath. His hair was disordered, and he could not speak. "Sir," he stammered, "sir, forgive me. A most unfortunate resemblance. The robber was arrested 3 days ago. You're free." Phileas Fogg was free. He walked to the detective, looked him steadily in the face, and with only the rapid motion that he had ever made in his entire life, or which he ever would make, he drew back his arms, and with the precision of a machine, he knocked Fix down. "Well hit, monsieur!" cried Passepartout. "Parbleu! That is what you might call a good appreciation of an English fist." Fix, finding himself on the floor, did not utter a word. He had only received his just deserts. Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout left the custom house without delay, got into a cab, and in a few moments they descended at the station. Phileas Fogg asked if there was an express train around to leave for London. It was now 40 minutes past 2. The express had left 35 minutes before. Phileas Fogg then ordered a special train. There were several special rapid locomotives on hand, but the railway arrangements did not permit the special train to leave until 3. At that hour, Phileas Fogg, having stimulated the engineer by the offer of a huge reward, had finally set out towards London with Aouda and his faithful servant. It was necessary to make the journey in 5 hours and a half, and this would have been easy on a clear road throughout, but there were forced delays. And when Mr. Fogg stepped from the train at the terminus, all the clocks in London were striking 10 minutes before 9. Having made the tour of the world, he was 5 minutes behind. He had lost the wager. Dun, dun, dun. We still have 2 chapters, so, I don't know what these last 2 chapters are going to be, but I am going to say that was a little anticlimactic. Maybe there's something big coming in our final 2 chapters, but to have it all end with Fix coming up and saying, "I messed up," seems a little anticlimactic. I don't know. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, I am going to go and start dinner. Hopefully I don't end up having to shovel again. We'll see. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow. I keep forgetting to say thank you so much to my patrons over on Patreon. There should be a new, fairly long chunk of the book that we just started over there, along with more Dragon Riders. And yeah, I just really appreciate you. And also thank you to anybody who is watching. I appreciate all of you. Hit the thumbs up on your way out if you don't mind. It always does make me smile. And I will see you tomorrow when we will finish Around the World in 80 Days.